Hello, everyone. My name is Jen Cheney. Thank you for joining us for this Tuesday talk. I have my friend Jaime who has joined me today. Jaime, I'll have you introduce yourself in just a moment. But before we get started, I'd like to cover some housekeeping items for our live listeners who have joined us today. So this is an interactive session. We love audience participation. And you, as a participant who has joined this webinar, can ask a question of Jaime as he and I visit over the course of the next half hour. And you can do that by clicking on your Zoom screen. There is a Q&A button, either at the top or most likely on the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you don't see it, there's a little button that says More. It's a circle with three dots. Click on that, and that Q&A button will pop up. So click on that, and then you can type in a question. You can even click a little box that says Anonymous. If you don't want me to know what your name is, that's completely up to you. But don't hesitate to type in a question because these conversations really do have much more impact on you as a potential franchise owner for Right at Home by asking the questions and getting them answered live. And thanks to those of you who are watching this on a recorded basis as well. Anyway, without further ado, Jaime, if you would please introduce yourself to our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jen. My name is Jaime Esquivel, and I am one of the business performance coaches here at Right at Home. I've been with Right at Home for going on 2 years now, and I've been in the franchising role for about 5 years. Previous organization was a senior business coach there and a director of franchise development. And then prior to that, I spent 13 years at all different operational levels, but in the food and beverage industry. So focus more on restaurant operations, where there's some similarities, I would say, in the type of world we live in, as far as running into those operational nuances. But yeah, 13 years there, coming here. I work with a portfolio of about 35 locations here at Right at Home. I do work with three performance groups. Those are a conglomeration of owners, usually about 7 to 12, that come together and they really act like a board of directors for each other. So I coach on an individual basis and then facilitate those group meetings, and those are held throughout the United States as well.
Okay, I've got more questions for you when it comes to performance groups. We'll get to that. But if you would please describe what it means to be a business performance coach at Right at Home. If you can, just maybe describe a typical day for you and maybe just the basics of what that role means in helping and supporting our franchise owners.
Yeah. So I'll break that down into two pieces for you. The typical day to day is really not that typical. It changes every day. I've got phone calls with my individual franchisees that I coach with. There's internal communication that we're having amongst my colleagues here, the other performance coaches, where we're talking about, well, what are we going to do to really level up the game when it comes to coaching? What are the processes? What are the tools? What are the resources that we're going to use when it comes to coaching? And then it's, planning some trips because we're out in the market visiting our franchisees, trying to get to at least 18 per coach per year. And that's outside of the performance groups where we go and meet for each performance groups twice in market and then twice virtually. But when it comes down to like what business coaching really is for me, I'll tell you the way that I tell any franchisee that I introduce myself to. And it's you've got a dream, right? You've spent your money, or you're going to spend your money in this case. You maybe you're a C-suite exec looking to do something different. Maybe you're a farmer who's just saying, "Hey, I want to change my life." Maybe you're looking to create a succession plan or create a legacy. I'm just here to help you make those dreams come true. And I do that by bringing everything that I've learned over the previous 13, 14 years in operations and just sharing them with you. I turn data into stories, and I turn those stories into your dreams realized. That's what it is to be a coach.
Okay, awesome. Love that. And just to paint the picture for our listeners. So, Jaime, as a business performance coach, you would start working with your full-time coach after you have transitioned from you've signed your franchise agreement, you've selected your office, your business is about ready to open, you've come here for training. You continue to work with Right Start Onboarding Manager, which you can certainly look at our resource library. I've done interviews with our Right Start coaching staff, and you can learn more about that phase of the business. But then once you're ready, you transition to your full-time coach, and perhaps that would be Jaime. So when you start working with a franchise owner, maybe just describe what that initial relationship looks like. So what are some of the things that you're going to work on with somebody who was just added to your portfolio of franchise owners, a newer franchise owner who has transitioned from Right Start to you, where are you going to start with them?
Yeah, so my relationship with the franchisee actually starts a few weeks, maybe even a couple of months before they fully transition into my book, if you will. They'll be working with whoever their Right Start onboarding coach is, and then that coach, the onboarding coach, will invite me to calls here and there just to get an idea of who it is and how I'm going to be working with that particular individual. Because those franchisees, they're all different, right? Everybody's got their own personality. They're all kind of going about it for different reasons. And so I want to learn their story, but I also want to learn what they're learning along the way with their Right Start onboarding coach. Because when they finally do quit making their calls with the onboarding coach and work directly with me one-on-one, I want to kind of get off to a running start. I want to know what's been happening so that we can take it from there and immediately get moving rather than going back and starting from square one. Who are you? What are you doing? Why are we doing this? That's not the way I like to do it. And then we'll generally start with weekly calls. At the beginning, it's really kind of high level stuff. I'm going in and I'm checking in on anything the Right Start onboarding coach has been working with our franchisees on. For instance, are we utilizing Well Sky correctly? What are some opportunities that we see there? We really just want to clean up the usage of our system at the very beginning so that we don't create bad habits. We have really good habits going on because once you get to 1 million, 2 million, whatever it is you're doing and you're growing in those hours, it's a lot harder to scale that back and fix the issues that you could have done at the beginning than it is to try and do it way later, right? And so we'll meet weekly. It really depends on how fast our franchisees are excelling in their operation. Sometimes it's a few months, sometimes it's 6 months. I've had a few who it's 4 weeks and we're on to bi-weeklies and then over on to monthly calls.
Awesome. Okay, so that's a great segue into I've been taking notes as you've been answering that last question. Wanted to ask you, when you start working with new franchise owners, in your opinion, what are maybe the top three habits or qualities or traits, great things that franchise owners are doing as they start their right at home business, as they're going their right at home business. So maybe some key things to add and tips or pointers to our listeners of when you first start in this right at home business, these are the things you're going to want to do because you've seen franchise owners thrive who possess those qualities or traits.
Yeah. One of the first things I want to make sure that they're doing is utilizing Well Sky correctly. And what I mean by
Okay.
that, that there's just so many pieces to it that you can kind of get lost in the software. And so we really want to nail down good habits early. And those habits include anything from cleaning up your administrative task list that shows up on a daily basis. You want to go in and make sure that you're checking in on prospects, that you are creating an inside sales pipeline for the prospects, and that you're creating a follow-up process for them instead of kind of letting them fall off to the wayside and then never get touched again, right? We're losing opportunities in that fashion. So we're really looking to clean that up super early. Those are going to be probably the main ones on Well Sky. Outside of that, it's for me, I really want my franchisees to kind of start being introspective about what's going on in their world, right? Because a million things are coming at you at once when you start.
Yep.
You need to schedule, you need to hire. I need to make sure my business insurance doesn't lapse. Like all of these little things.
Yeah.
And we really want to just say, hey, what's most important? Let's compartmentalize and then let's prioritize. And we do that by tasking it out, listing it out. And then I just have a really good conversation with you to help you understand what makes sense right now, what makes sense tomorrow, what makes sense next week, so that we can keep making that forward progress. Because we'll continue to run into hiccups. I mean, any business does. And I want to make sure that we create a really good habit on how do we approach those situations and then get beyond them so they're not an issue again in the future.
Okay, awesome. And as you're answering that question, a new one came in. I'm going to read it to you. It says, how often do you visit each owner in the field? Is it more so in the early years versus more tenured owners?
So I'll be real transparent with you in that in the past it had been that we weren't visiting them quite enough, and we've expanded our resources, we've expanded the coaching team. Now the goal is we want to get to every single office at least once every 18 months. And in some cases, for me especially, I've been out there once or twice in 18 months, right? Maybe even 2 to 3 times if they are a little bit more in need of that kind of support. But that's just for me. That doesn't mean that you're not going to get an opportunity to get a visit from, say, somebody who's a little bit more sales focused, and that could be an opportunity for you. We're also starting to do regional visits where, depending on how your state or your region wants to set it up, we may be able to get multiple individuals from an area and then bring them together so that a coach, a sales coach, or somebody else from our office can also join. So, although my personal contacts, we're shooting for that once every 18 months, that doesn't mean that's the only visit you're going to be getting.
Correct. Yes. And the specific question here was in field visits, meaning in-person visits. You still connect with all your entire portfolio on a very regular basis, Zoom calls, weekly calls, monthly calls, quarterly calls. So there's lots of engagement. And then of course, with a portfolio of several dozen franchise owners, obviously you want to visit them in person as much as possible, which you do, but there's still lots of engagement, obviously, in between those in-person visits. Obviously, do want to just point that out.
Yeah. And I just
Okay.
want to throw in there real quick too. You mentioned, I do have that portfolio of a lot of different individuals and we're always contacting and trying to keep in touch. That's actually one of the big benefits of having a portfolio that size. I bring so many best practices and things that other individuals hadn't even thought of just by talking to other franchisees in the network
Yeah.
and just sharing that across the entire system. And so when we get to visit, you'll hear a lot, not just about what's coming from the office, but you're going to hear a lot about what's coming out from in the field.
Awesome. Great point to add. And then another question came in. It's regarding performance groups. It says, when do you decide that a franchisee is ready to join a performance group?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the very basic requirement is you need to have been in the system for at least a year. We want to make sure you've got everything rocking and rolling. There's no concerns as far as the business and where it needs to be. Right after that 1 year mark, we really want to assess how interested are you in being in a performance group. So it's not necessarily my call, but it's more of the franchisee's call because there is a commitment to being in a performance group. It's beyond just kind of being an owner and running your business. Those two in-person visits, we need to make sure that you're prepped and ready. You need to get slide deck with data together. You need to pull together all of your reporting. Because keep in mind, you are going to be presenting not to me, but to your board of directors, which consists of your peers. Again, 7 to 12 members that are in this performance group. And so you really want to come prepared with that. We talk about bright ideas, burning issues. And so when you're considering joining a performance group, you have to be committed to traveling at least twice a year. You have to be, and that's going to be for anywhere from 2 to 4 days. And you have to be committed to meeting on the off quarters twice and at least for 4 hours, again, where you're presenting that information. The other piece you need to consider too is, are you willing to be able to challenge the individuals that are in that meeting? Because it's not just a one-way street here, right? You're going to be asking for advice and for that peer group mentality to really kind of help you grow your business, but you need to be in a position where you're willing to offer that same type of insight to other individuals. So once you've come to the realization that, hey, I can commit to this, then we talk about what it's like to join a performance group. And if you're still feeling good about it, we introduce you to the performance groups that either have an opening or we'll even create a brand new performance group with various members in it so that we can get that going.
Okay. Thank you for that. Next question. Let's see here. Okay. So I had a question marked down here. When it comes to supporting franchise owners and that regular engagement that you have with them, it isn't just a matter of calling them up and, hey, let's just talk and how's your business? There's a bona fide plan in place. So let's talk about perhaps what are some of those key performance indicators that you track with every franchise owner, because without a plan, you're just kind of spinning your wheels, right? So you have to have some type of goal to work towards, or metrics that you measure to track successes or challenges. So let's talk about some of those KPIs that you work with our franchise owners on when it comes to their business.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's important to mention something that you kind of alluded to there is that there is a plan, right? We have what's called a strategic business plan that we as coaches work with our individual franchisees to put together. This plan includes not only those key performance indicators, and I'll kind of tell you a few of those here in just a second, but it also includes the guide for you to really help create your core values, your mission statement, understand your demographics and your market, and then also once we get to those metrics, help you to understand what kind of goals do we need to be creating. Let's look out 3 years, let's look out 1 year, and then let's take bites out of it quarterly and then even weekly. And so that strategic business plan really helps us do that. Some of the things that we do look at as far as individual metrics, at the very high level, we look at your net caregiver growth, your net client growth. So are we getting more clients in? Are we getting more caregivers? Because that's going to indicate if your business is heading in the right direction. We obviously take a look at revenue, and then we follow something that we here call the model. And that model is representative of how financially healthy is your business. Is your gross profit margin where it needs to be? And when you get that gross profit margin, we have three sections below it. Are you hitting what you need to for administrative costs? Are all your other fixed expenses being covered? And then that residual amount, is that enough to cover your net income or what we would call your owner's discretionary profit? And so we look at those at a very high level to understand, is the growth happening the way it needs to be? But then, as I mentioned in that strategic business plan, we have some specific goals for you, right? And so those specific goals will require us to look at very specific metrics for that. For example, maybe you need to grow from 800 to 1,000 hours. It's going to require you to get a salesperson. Perfect. So if you have a hit salesperson, now we're not just looking at revenue. We're looking at amount of visits to referral sources per week. We're looking at our inquiry to assessment ratio and our assessment ratio to closed win. And so really depending on what your specific individual goals are, we're going to help you develop very specific individual metrics for you to be able to analyze your business.
Yes. Okay. Two questions have come in regarding strategic plan. The first one says, when in the timeline do you create the strategic business plan? And the second question says, is the strategic business plan created every year?
So the answer to the second one is yes. We're actually getting the 2026 version ready right now so that we can roll it out. As far as when it's created, ideal situation is we're kind of starting to put the pieces together a little bit with your Right Start onboarding coach, right? When we're starting to think about your market, your demographic, and how are we going to be getting in there? There's some pieces in that strategic business plan that you'll work with them on. But then from day one, we're going to have a discussion about how we're really going to fill this thing out. For me personally, what I want to focus on is what are the things that are impacting you right now? What are the issues you're having? Because we're about to get started with this. So what can we address? That'll help us create a few specific goals at the beginning. Because when early in your business, the truth of it is it's very high level. We're not into the craziness of, the things you may see specific to your market. So I just want to check revenue. I want to check growth of caregivers, growth of clients. And then from there, I'd say within about the first 2 to 3 months, we're really starting to dive into the deeper stuff. And that's where I'm asking you to tell me, who are you as a person? Innately, who are you? How did you grow up? How do other people see you? Because your business very much is an extension of yourself. And I would like for your business to be representative of that. So then we start creating core values and a mission statement off of that, where it's a lot easier to live that life because you embody those values. And then it just kind of goes from there. But yeah, right at the beginning, and then 2 to 3 months, we're really diving into the weeds with it.
Awesome. Okay. So, going transitioning to another topic here. And I've asked this of other coaches that I've interviewed before. Going to ask you as well. I don't think that I've ever talked to anyone, being here on the franchise development team, as well as our development directors. I don't think anybody has ever said to us, I want to be a right at home franchise owner, and I want to be just average, right? So everyone who joins the right at home system, we want to see them thrive. We want to see them excel. So, in your opinion, what operational habits separate high performing franchisees from an average franchisee?
Jen, that's a loaded question because there's a lot of things out there I think that really differentiate what we would call the good owner from the great owner. But I really think if you're going to be a great owner, it's going to be a true commitment to living out the business the way that you would live your daily life. And I know it sounds kind of plain, but I mean, it's the truth. It goes back to me just telling you about core values and who are you and what do you want to be and why are you doing this? And all of those pieces, again, are embodied within your business. And if you really, truly live it that way, then everybody knows what direction you're headed. All of your staff members know every decision that trickles down through your entire business is going to be funneled through those values, through that mission, through who you are as a person. And they all row in the same direction. So when you're really trying to be great and not just a good owner, when you can put that northern light up there, right, that guiding star, and
Hmm?
you can really, really live that out, man, magic things happen. I mean,
Yes.
I've got two franchisees right now. They recently did that through an EOS implementation, and their whole perspective on not only their business has changed, but their perspective of the people of who this owner is has changed, and they've grown astronomically.
Okay, awesome. I love that. And actually, that's a good segue into the next question that I wanted to ask you. We have a lot of people who join the Right at Home system that don't have any business ownership experience. They don't have any franchising experience, which that's okay. Those are things that are not required for you to have. You know, people join a franchise system because they want, you know, the proven processes, procedures, you know, tools and everything, those resources that are there for you to use as a franchise owner. But let's talk a little bit about that transition from somebody being an employee of a business to now being a franchise owner within a franchise system. What are maybe some of the challenges that you have seen that people face with that and how they can overcome some of those challenges? Or maybe just one that you can think of that's a key point to bring up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you kind of nailed it, right? You've got people who are coming in who've never ran a business before, right? Or owned one. You know, you might have ran one, but you never owned it. And it can be a little bit daunting because now the payroll's on your back. Now, you know, the bills are coming and you need to make sure the revenue's coming in. There's a lot of things that can get scary. But that's why we're here as coaches. I'm not a consultant. I'm a coach. And so I'm here to show you all of the different ways in which you can be a better version of yourself and just become the owner that you want to be. You know, examples include approaching what we would call a line level employee, right? So some individuals who come, they last time they've talked to somebody who was maybe a few rungs down from them on the corporate ladder was a decade ago. And so how do you do that? How do you approach them? We're here to teach you the philosophy of approach. We're here to teach you the philosophy of leadership versus management. We're here to show you just the different ways that you can do things that will really make you shine in the eyes of your employees. And we're also here to be that sounding board. When you have an idea and you're kind of like, hey, do I do it this way? Or what do you think about this particular situation? We've done it. We've been there. We may not have been business owners, but we've been doing this for a very, very long time at different levels. And the best part about it is that all of our coaches, they all have a little bit of a different specialty. Whereas Joe's great at sales and, you know, Kylie's great at financials. I'm great at concepts, theory, and leadership ability. And so for those pieces, we're going to come together and share them with you. So you're never left alone. You're never left in the dark. And if I don't have the answer, somebody else on the team does. And we're going to share that with you in a way that's going to help you just, again, exemplify the true person you're trying to be.
Okay, perfect. That was wonderful. Next question for you, and I've asked this of other coaches as well. So, as you know, our mission is to improve the quality of life for those we serve, and that's not just franchise owners working with their caregivers and the caregivers working with those clients and improving the quality of life for the clients that are receiving right at home services. It's everything from the clients to the caregivers to the staff members to the franchise owners and even all of us here at Right at Home Corporate. We have a very strong mission statement and core values. As you know, in the franchising world, everybody who is joining us today who is interested in franchising with Right at Home, perhaps they are looking at other franchise concepts. Perhaps they're looking at other home care franchise concepts. So just looking for some personal feedback on perhaps what do you love about Right at Home, and what do you love about the job that you do and the franchise owners that you get to work with every day?
You know, for me personally, it's what I said at the very beginning, like the what do we do as a coach? And it's helping people realize those dreams, right? I come from a background where I've always wanted to leave the world in a better place than I have the day before, right? Anything I do, I want to make sure that tomorrow is going to be better and today is better than yesterday. And the same is true for those that I coach. The idea that you would want to get into business and just kind of be status quo, that doesn't sit well. You're obviously doing this for a reason. You're looking into franchising for a reason. And so we want to help you achieve that. Again, whether it's a succession plan for your family, whether it's legacy, whether it's a retirement plan, because you know, maybe the pension didn't work out the way you thought it was. Whatever it is, whatever your goal is, we're here to help make that come true for you. So yeah, that's the way I like to live, and that's the way I like to coach it.
Okay, perfect. And what is a maybe your if you were to choose just one, because I'm sure you have lots of thoughts on like, hey, that if I were to give you some advice, this would be it. If you could choose, what would your top advice be for someone who is thinking about joining Right at Home or maybe has made the decision, yes, I for sure want to do this. And, if I'm invited to a discovery day and I'm approved post discovery day and I move forward with this, just some, key things to point out when it comes to being a right at home franchise owner. As who's somebody who's just starting out, a key piece of advice that you can give to somebody who is in that position.
Yeah. I think the thing that I would say is humility is king. And what I mean by that is you need to be humble enough to know when you can learn not only from above, but from below. You need to be able to take advice and direction, not only from somebody who is on the other side of a screen from you, such as myself, but internally from people who may be on the front lines who maybe in another world might not have been the kind of individual you're going to be taking advice from. Humility will allow you to grow not only the business, but grow in self. And so if you're going to really do this, it needs to be a full commitment. It can't be one foot in the door, one foot out, and you need to be humble along the road.
Yes, that's awesome. And another thing that I want to point out, kind of in conjunction with that, for our listeners who are actively going through the education and approval process with Right at Home, there is a point where you'll be asked to connect with some of our existing franchise owners for the franchisee validation part of the process. And your development director that you're working with will certainly provide a list of a few recommended questions that you can ask of our franchise owners. You can take that list and throw it out the window if you want to, and ask your own questions. But we certainly provide some questions that recommended questions that you can ask. But I encourage you when you do franchisee validation that you ask about the kind of support that our franchise owners receive from everyone here, obviously at the corporate office, but specifically from their business performance coach. Because the business performance coach is a very key person in a franchise owner's tenure here at Right at Home, where they work lockstep side by side on establishing their business, growing their business, expanding their business. The coaches are there for every step of the way, and it's just amazing feedback. And I'm humbled every time that I get the feedback from franchise owners who go through, or excuse me, prospective franchise owners who go through franchisee validation on the really wonderful things that existing franchise owners say about our coaching staff and the level of support that they actually do receive. And so it's another thing. And I'm really tooting my horn here when it comes to franchisee validation, because really it's our franchise owners are second to none. They are wonderfully supported, and I am so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for you, Jaime, and the rest of our coaches who work tirelessly to help our franchise owners support our franchise owners. And you're some of the best in the business, so thank you for that. We just got a few minutes left, Jaime. So, is there anything that was not discussed today that you want to bring up before we hang up here, knowing that we have an audience of people who are thinking about franchising with Right at Home? Any last piece of advice you have for them?
Yeah, actually, the last piece of advice I think I would share is to really look at yourself and why you're looking at a home care company, right? Look internally and ask yourself, why do I want to do this? A lot of the folks that I work with have had some sort of run-in with home care in the past, whether it was them taking care of a loved one, their wife, their husband, their father, what have you, and just say, is this what I want to do, or is there a deeper reason? And the reason I ask that is because again, it take it all the way back to when you're really starting this business strategic business plan. What is that core value? Who are you? Why are you living the life you live, and why do you wake up every morning? Because
Yeah.
when you can connect those pieces to why you're looking at this particular business, and
Yep.
if they make sense, if they coincide and they walk that same path, side by side with you, that reason will take you anywhere you want to go. It
Awesome.
absolutely will.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And this was a wonderful conversation. Let's do this again sometime. I appreciate you taking the time to do this today, and I know our listeners do as well. So thank you.
My pleasure. Bye.
Okay. Until next time. Bye.